So the light class is undoubtedly one of the most enjoyable classes to play in the finals, but I would argue it is also one of the hardest due to how little health you have compared to everyone else, and because of that it can definitely be very difficult to get the hang of. So today we're going through a relatively fundamental guide on how to play the light class. Now I will be doing this for both the medium and heavy classes in the next couple of videos too, so if you are new around here, be sure to subscribe for more finals content. But with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now before we get into the nitty gritty of like your loadout and stuff like that, just your general overall playstyle, you should be considering yourself as essentially a disruptor or infiltrator. I do see a lot of people picking the light class and then they kind of just go in guns blazing thinking that they're the hero or the main character, and in reality that is not a very effective way to play this game unless you are an absolute freak, at which point I'd imagine you're probably not watching this video. You don't want to go head to head and pretty much expect to win gunfights. Every other class in the game obviously has more health than you, and obviously when you're coming up against the light class, even though that is a fair fight in terms of HP, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to win that gunfight either. So you pretty much want to avoid going head to head into gunfights unless the odds are just absolutely stacked in your favor. If you see a heavy on like 30 health, then obviously that's a little bit different. But if you see a heavy on full health, you don't want to be running in head to head because you will absolutely lose those gunfights. Now, when I say about being a disruptor, what I mean is mostly just talking about causing openings for your teammates. As an example, you might cloak and then sneak into an area where the enemy team is. You're obviously going to get in there without them knowing. You can then sort of pop out and deal a bit of damage, and at that point the enemy team is going to be distracted. They might have all been looking in the direction of where your teammates are, ready to stop them from barging in, but now all of a sudden they're distracted. They're kind of thinking, oh shit, someone's in here, and you've just distracted the entire enemy team. And even if they all focus on you and kill you, they're still focusing on probably the wrong thing, because then your teammates can sort of charge in, and what do you know, there are enemies who are looking in the wrong direction now. Or if they don't manage to kill you, for example, kind of adding on to what you've already done, if you get in there, deal a bit of damage, even potentially get a kill, and the enemies are focusing on you, you can then dip and essentially just run away, at which point a lot of enemies are going to be distracted by that and actually sort of chase you, at which point they are then leaving the objective. And once again, your teammates who were waiting there ready for you to do that, you've maybe gotten one kill, drawn the other enemy out who's chasing you, and they're probably going to kill you, but that leaves one enemy protecting the objective. Your two teammates can go in, that's now a 2v1, they're going to win that, and even if, you know, the other enemy kills you, it's still a 2v1 in your favor. They can then revive you. So that is essentially what I mean by being a disruptor, and that is realistically how you want to be playing as the light class. You want to be very in and out. You want to get in and do your job, whether that be to distract, get a quick kill, or even steal an objective, and then essentially just immediately try and escape. Like I said, it not only can save you if you do try and escape, but it can often also draw enemies away, which is very, very helpful for your teammates. Now, getting into the loadout side of things, starting off with the specializations. In my opinion, the cloak is by far the best, or at least the easiest to pick up, and therefore kind of like the easiest one to use. It doesn't necessarily mean it is the absolute best, but I think just for the general player base, the cloak is probably the overall best specialization for the light class. This one really allows you to navigate the map a little bit easier. It really allows you to sneak right up to your enemies, and you can kind of just keep enemies distracted. The examples I just gave about, you know, getting into an area and distracting enemies, even in that same situation, if you're dealing a bit of damage and you've drawn all the focus towards you, but then they're not shooting you, you can once again equip that cloak, and all of a sudden you have vanished in thin air, at which point those enemies are now essentially shitting themselves thinking, oh my god, I have to try and kill this guy or else he's gonna, you know, get behind me and kill me. So once again, that only distracts them further, and instead of, you know, focusing on defending the objective, they're just now worried about the little light class that is running around their ankles. You could literally just be sitting in the corner doing absolutely nothing, but they, you know, they may not know where you are depending on the lighting in the room and stuff like that. It's going to cause panic, and it's going to completely distract those enemies, and that is why I personally think the cloak is the best. Now, with that being said, the evasive dash and the grapple are both very, very solid too, and if you're really good with your movement, then these are equally as good as the cloak in my opinion. Like I said, I just think the cloak has essentially the lowest skill gap, meaning it is the easiest to pick up. The dash and the grapple both have a slightly higher skill ceiling, meaning I think if you're really, really, really good with the evasive dash, it is probably better than the cloak, but you do have to be very good to be able to do that. And therefore, like I said, the cloak is just the easiest one to pick up, and therefore probably the best one for just the general population of this game. Now, in terms of the weapon side of things, and once again, as goes with all of this stuff, it is essentially subjective. There's not really really any objective bests in the game. My personal favorite is actually the XP54, but that is definitely just personal preference. I wouldn't actually say it's the best by any means. It's probably the jack of all trades in that it is the best all-around weapon, but I think there are definitely better weapons. It is just my personal favorite. It is very easy to use and it just feels very comfortable for me personally. With that being said, the M11, especially after its recent buff, feels very, very solid as well, especially up close. The V95 pistol is also very good too. Both of those deal very solid damage, good rate of fire, and both of them essentially just send a lot of damage down range. Now, even though I just said that there is no objective best in the game or anything, currently the SH1900 is, let's just face it, busted and can quite literally two-tap a heavy. So that thing is absolutely clapped. And if you combine that shotgun with the cloak, it is genuinely broken at this point. You can cloak, walk right up to a heavy and shoot them in the ass and you will kill them in 2 shots. That is absolutely clapped. So if you're really struggling with the light class, that is a really good way to play this game, even though it is very annoying. Just getting right next to your enemies with that cloak and then essentially two-tapping them with the shotgun. Now, moving on to the gadget side of things, I would say personally, at least for me anyway, the most balanced setup to help win games is pretty much any kind of grenade. So for example, the frag, the gas, or the pyro grenades, just for that added area of effect damage. It's really helpful for if someone's trying to steal the objective and you're just not in the position to run up there and kill them. Throwing a grenade is obviously very handy. I'd then say the stun gun is probably the best in terms of just helping you deal with heavies or realistically just escaping tight situations. It is a little bit more niche and you have to be very accurate with it and stuff like that, but it does get you out of a lot of tight situations. And then one that I think not many people are actually using, and to be honest, I only started using this very recently. This one is the glitch grenade. And in my opinion, this may be the single best gadget for the light class. What this will do is essentially cancel stuff like specializations and gadgets. So if the enemy team is, sitting in tight on the objective, they're relying on turrets, maybe the heavy's mesh shield, and then some mines to defend that objective. If you can throw a glitch grenade in there and, affect all of them, you could pretty much take all of those things out that I just mentioned, the shields, the mines, the turrets, and obviously that is going to be a massive help to you and your teammates, especially when it comes to the mesh shields. Those are obviously absolutely brutal. If there is a really good heavy on the other team using a mesh shield, it often feels like there is essentially nothing you can do. So the glitch grenades are very underrated in my opinion, and I may actually do a video just solely on those in the near future. Outside of that setup that I just mentioned though, I will also say the vanishing bomb is also super useful if you don't have the cloak on, as it essentially does the same thing as the cloak. And to be honest, you can double this up with the cloak and just have more time, under the cloak, but I personally think that is a bit of a waste of a slot. So the vanishing bomb is good, but I would probably only use that if you are using the evasive dash or the grapple. Now, to pretty much summarize the light class, like I said, you need to remember your role in the team, and especially remember that you are pretty much a glass cannon. I see a lot of people picking the light class, and because of the movement speed and it kind of feels like you're playing Call of Duty, you've got quick movement and all that kind of thing. A lot of people play that as if they are the main character and they're just running around trying to get, one-on-one gunfights, and realistically that is just not the way to play the light class. If you're playing against, enemies that are genuine bots, then sure, you can do that, but for the most part, that is not how you want to be playing the light class. Now, that doesn't mean you can't dominate in terms of kills, because you absolutely can. Some of my highest kill games are with the light class, but to be effective in terms of winning games, your role in the team, like I said, is to distract enemies, to draw them away, essentially just being a little menace and causing them to pretty much just get flustered, at which point they are just not nearly as effective. If the enemies are set up on the objective and they all know what they're doing, that can be nearly impossible to break down. But if they get distracted and they start freaking out because there's a light class running around their ankles, that turns those players from a very solid squad into 3 enemies who are essentially useless all at the same time. And obviously that means your teammates are going to have a much easier time on the objectives and obviously cleaning up those enemies. The last thing to remember is to make the most of your movement as well. Obviously you do have far less health than the other classes, but your movement is so much better than the other classes. So don't be stagnant and slow. You don't want to play the light class like you would play the heavy class. You need to absolutely milk the fact that you are faster and lighter than everyone else, and that combined with playing your role, you can definitely be very effective as the light class in the finals. I'm keen to hear your thoughts though, so let me know of anything in this video that maybe you guys disagree with, or any tips of your own for those of reading in the comments section. I'm always keen to hear your thoughts. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there in the arena.